Warren Gatland is named a squad for the 2025 Six Nations, folks. There are a few big omissions, as is usually the case when any squad gets named. The fans are never 100% happy. The injury list is pretty long, and there's a couple of uncapped players. Let's go through the squad. You guys can let us know your thoughts on how they are going to go. At times, Gatz's press conference seemed to be a little bit contradictory. But, yeah, I don't know. He's the guy with the experience. He's the guy who's won Six Nations and Grand Slams and whatnot. So, yeah, there are just a few kind of big question marks. Having followed the squad for some time now. The two uncapped guys, Dan Edwards, the number 10, is rewarded for a bit of good form for the Ospreys. He's been one guy that many Welsh fans have been telling me will be the future answer at 10. So he is going to get that chance. And then Alice Mee, the outside back for the Scarlets, is also going to get a crack. Gats hinted that he might be getting to go a bit of fullback because he's played fullback for his previous club as well. So congratulations to those two guys. But there's also a few big omissions. Max Llewellyn's one, maybe the most high profile, given that Wales have struggled a little bit in terms of their try scoring in recent times. And the dude is, I believe, quite literally the top joint try scorer for the Premiership for his club Gloucester. So if you've got a proven strike weapon, for him not to make the squad, I don't know, it's interesting. Gats mentioned that he needs to get more touches and that he got a lot of good quality 12. So I think Llewellyn can play 13. So I don't know. That just seems like a kind of baffling one, but I assume Gats has got his reasons. It just seems like lack of try scoring, proven try scorer, those things would mesh together pretty well. And then, like Gareth Anscombe, I know he picked up a knock recently, but Gats, the way he talked about him in the press conference, kind of just said that he's too old. Not in so many words. He said that they're trying to build experience at number 10 and that Gareth's already got lots of experience and that he'll be 36 come the next World Cup. So that they were kind of balancing the short-term versus long-term thing. So they wanted to give some of the youngsters a go, hence Gareth missing out. Like that, I can understand that logic, but then you've also got like Liam Williams, who's also 33, comes into the squad ahead of Cam Winnett. Cam Winnett was one of the regulars. Like if you looked at the depth chart video we did for Wales, based on their 2024 selections, Cam Winnett had like 80% of the game time at number 15. So for him to just drop out of the squad entirely was just a little bit of a surprise for a 33-year-old who will also be like 36 come the next World Cup. So that's what I mean, just by a little bit of a contradiction, but maybe Gats figures Cam Winnett's had a lot of international rugby and he doesn't need any more. He's also got experience. I don't know. His name didn't even come up in the press conference. Likewise, Rio Dyer was 70+% of the game time in his position on the wing last year, and he has also failed to make the grade. So, yeah, some interesting selections. Tame Plumtree is probably the other one if you were going to look at guys who were prominent last year who miss out, but Gats also mentioned that they went with 5 locks and 5 loosies instead of 4 locks, 6 loosies, which is kind of why Tane Plumtree misses out. And I guess a couple of those guys like Chiunza and Freddie Thomas can fill in the back row if needs be. But yeah, those are the kind of main misses out and the guys who've kind of come into the squad. There's also some veterans back, but we'll go through the squad now. Yeah, the Max Llewellyn one is a bit of a head scratcher. Asarati, Wilgriff John, Matthias, Nicky Smith, and the two Thomases, Gareth and Henry, are the props. They're obviously without Archie Griffin, who's injured, and Leon Brown, who's had to retire. So tight head is looking a bit thin, I suppose, given that, Wilgriff John, he's had very little game time for Sale this year, so tight head is a little bit of a concern. Loose head, you feel like it's going to be Gareth Thomas and Nicky Smith. Surely with Matthias the third choice, but those are your 6 props. Elliot D, Evan Lloyd, and Sam Parry is an interesting 3 guys at hooker. Obviously, Dewi Lake is injured, so he's not available. Sam Parry being back in, I say, is interesting because he had a big falling out with Gats when Gats basically told him, was it last year, that he'd only be there holding tackle bags and he was only there to be cover. Sam Parry didn't like it, so he left the squad, but apparently they've reconciled because he is back into the squad, which I think is a bit of good news. Evan Lloyd's had pretty limited opportunities at international level. I think he's gotten 5 caps, but if I'm not mistaken, they're all from the bench, so yeah, he would, I would assume, be still filling in the bench role if he does get any game time. And then Elliot D, who's likewise not had a heck of a lot of rugby. I think he's had about an hour. He is straight back into Welsh colours. So, yeah, the Dewi Lake one is an unfortunate one in terms of the timing of his injury. Ryan Elias also unavailable with injury. The 5 locks he's gone with: Jenkins, Rowlands, Williams, that's Teddy, Chiunza and Thomas, that's Freddie. As I mentioned, Chiunza and Freddie Thomas can certainly drop into the back row if they decide to put a bit of extra tall timber onto one of the flanks. Interesting about those guys is 4 of them are based outside of the URC. So during those fallow weeks and whatnot, they won't be available. So Gats talked about potentially having to bring some other guys in during those times. Again, if you need guys to train with the squad, hold the tackle bags and whatnot, guys to lift at line-up practice and whatnot. So they'll need some extra bodies, because it just so happens that one position seems to be guys based out of Wales, so they got less access to them. But, you know, it's good to have Jenkins back, because he missed a fair bit of rugby last year with injury. Lucy's only 5 of them, like I mentioned, both of them. Falatau, Jack Morgan, who's captain, Tommy Reffel, and Aaron Wainwright. So Falatau's back after a long absence from Wales. He didn't play at all last year, and we haven't seen him since the World Cup. But he is one of the veterans to be back. But again, if you're looking towards the youngsters in some positions, maybe it's only 10 that they're looking towards the youngsters. But yeah, Falatau gets a crack. Jack Morgan and Tommy Reffel, it's kind of unfortunate those guys play the same position, unless he wants to play them both at the same time. But they are 2 of the best players in the squad. And yeah, Wainwright and Falatau competing for the number 8 jersey will also be an interesting one. Does that mean James Botham's an automatic selection on number 6? Or does he drop one of those locks into the back row, like I mentioned? Will also be an interesting one. Adam Baird and Ben Carter, those guys are both unavailable at the moment with injury. So, yeah, the injury list in a few positions in the forwards means Gats doesn't have as many options. But he also mentioned that this is one of the first times that they had more robust debate about selection, because they do have so many more players available. In the backs, 3 halfbacks: Alice Bevan, Rodri and Thomas Williams. Rodri Williams is another interesting one if you're looking towards the whole guys getting too old at the next World Cup. Like to go with Rodri Williams ahead of Ruben Morgan Williams, who's like 5 or 6 years younger. Like Ruben Morgan Williams is still in his mid-20s, whereas Rodri Williams is like 31. But I guess Thomas Williams is the starter, and the other guys are just as backup. Anyway, Dan Edwards, like I mentioned, is the kind of one specialist 10 in the squad, as there's no Anscombe, and Sam Costello, unfortunately, is injured. But I feel like it's good for that guy to take a break from international rugby and get a little bit of the pressure off him, because he is a kind of much maligned guy there in the 10 jersey. I've also stuck the boot into him a few times, because I've said I don't know if he's the real deal at international level. There's a few teams who don't have like that kind of world-class 10. So Sam Costello to go back, just get some club rugby under his belt, find some form, I don't think is a bad thing. So it's a chance for Dan Edwards to get a crack, and then maybe Ben Thomas as well. I know he's been playing mostly 12, but he's the only other guy in the squad who you think is probably going to run the show at 10 if it isn't Dan Edwards. So it's Edwards and Thomas. And then midfielders, as I mentioned, no Max Llewellyn is the biggest kind of head scratcher. You got Eddie James, Joe Roberts, Nick Tompkins, Owen Watkin. Nick Tompkins is another one of the guys that gets a lot of stick. He's one of the guys I will stick up for. I think he's good. I think he gets a bit more stick than he deserves. Yeah, but Max Llewellyn's absence just looks notable. Is Joe Roberts, who was kind of like the 4th choice 13 for Wales last year, going to play 13, or is it going to be Owen Watkin? I don't know. But, yeah, I just feel like it looks nicer if Max Llewellyn's there. But, yep, Gats has made his mind up there. Outside backs, Josh Adams, Josh Hathaway, Ellis Mee, Blair Murray, Tom Rogers, and Liam Williams. So, like I mentioned, there's no Cam Winnett. Obviously, there's no Mason Grady, because he had surgery last year after that kind of Fiji match, which is an unfortunate one, because he'd be another good guy to be in the mix. And then Rio Dyer has plummeted out of the selection. So, yeah, Blair Murray seems to have come through pretty well in terms of Gats' preferences since making his debut. And recently he's accumulated 3 caps, Josh Adams being back and firing is good news. And Liam Williams is the most senior guy of that bunch at 33 years old. So there's a lot of guys who've only got, like Hathaway's got 2 caps, Murray's got 3, Rogers has got 5, Alice Mee's uncapped. So there's a little bit of inexperience in those outside backs. There's a couple of other guys who I don't think are eligible due to the kind of 25 cap rule, the likes of Reece Carey, who could have been another option in the front row. He seems to be going all right over in the Premiership. But then like Jared Evans, another guy in the Premiership, I don't think he's available because he's not played 25 caps for Wales and he's playing his rugby abroad. But someone will correct me if I'm wrong. Fixtures list. Away to France. That seems rough. That is not an easy way to start your Six Nations campaign. And then away to Italy. That's probably the game, because the whole talk about is Gatz's job on the line. Well, yes, it is on the line. That's potentially the game that decides whether Gatz stays or goes. You feel like if he loses the game against Italy, it could well be all over. Home against Ireland. Ireland may be there for the taking depending on how well they go without Andy Farrell. That's a real unknown at the moment, but Ireland are going to be tough. Like, I'm just saying that's the only potential chink in the armour. If there is disruption with them, with the Lions tour and whatnot causing that bit of disruption, maybe that, and the fact that it's at home leaves the door just a bit ajar for this young Welsh squad. Scotland away. Scotland are a bit of the France in terms of they're a bit unpredictable, but Murrayfield you feel like it's going to be tough. And then England at home. Wales against England is always a cracker. So yeah, the 2 home games you feel like need to be at least decent performance levels. You probably need to get a win against Italy. Like, I think if you won against Italy and won against England, that would be all right. That would be a successful campaign compared to last year. But bare minimum is you can't get the spoon. You definitely can't get the spoon if you get and keep your job. But you guys let us know your thoughts on the squad. How excited are you to see Dan Edwards at 10? Who else do you think has been omitted? Like Tane Basham is another one, but I feel like when you've got Jack Morgan and you've got Tommy Reffel, it doesn't leave much of a spot for Tane Basham. You guys are pretty well stacked for loosies. It's not an area that you guys are going to struggle. But yeah, how Dan Edwards goes at 10 if he does get a crack, and how the front row can hold up will be pretty fascinating. You guys let us know your thoughts, and yes, I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.